Welcome to the Sacred Dance Summit. I'm Leslie Zehr, author of The Alchemy of Dance, Sacred Dance as a Path to the Universal Dancer, and your host for this summit. My guest today is Suzanne Caesar. Suzanne, the oldest of 9 children and, as a built-in babysitter, learned so much about pregnancy, birth, and babies from her mother, including using imagery during labor. While working on her master's in dance at NYU, life, as they say, happened. Suzanne found herself dancing her way through her own 2 pregnancies and experienced firsthand the great benefits of dancing her way to birth. Not only did dance help her to stay fit and healthy, she found it also helped her prepare for labor and deliver both her babies naturally the way she wanted. Suzanne integrated her personal experience with her extensive dance background, along with her studies in guided imagery and homeopathy, to create a holistic and contemporary way to celebrate and support pregnant women and launch her first company, Maternal Dance, in 1999. As women's physical therapist Deborah Goodman wrote, "Maternal Dance is a fabulous way to get in shape during pregnancy. This class combines core strengthening and flexibility work in a way that is appropriate for the pregnant woman. In addition, the exercises prepare women for labor and delivery by helping to loosen the hips and pelvic muscles. This is a class that is fun and perfectly tailored to suit the needs of the pregnant woman." Suzanne became a certified perinatal fitness coach with certifications in prenatal yoga and Pilates. She then launched Rhythm for Life after producing the Prenatal Belly Dance Workout DVD in 2009, which was endorsed by the March of Dimes and featured at the 2010 International Childbirth Educators Lamaze Joint Conference. Considered an innovator in prenatal dance and maternal fitness, her programs have been featured on major news outlets such as the Discovery Health Channel, New York One News, FoxNews.com, Self and Pilates Style magazines, The Bump, and more. Suzanne is now a frequent guest lecturer and speaker trainer at corporate events and seminars and is launching her Maternal Dance online course next month with a teacher training program to follow. Welcome, Suzanne.
Hi, Leslie.
Good
How
to
are
have
you?
you here.
Thank
I'm good.
you. Happy to
Nice
be
to
here.
have Suzanne back. Suzanne was a speaker at the first summit, and she's joining us again, but with a very different topic. So before we get into the topic, maybe you can just tell everybody a little bit about your journey with dance, just how you got into dance and how it all started for you.
Really organically, I just loved, as a little girl, dancing. It made me happy, and my parents saw that. And actually, my grandmother put me in a dance class at 5 years old, and I just continued on the journey, taking classes and growing, and studying ballet and jazz and tap and even Irish dance. I actually was an Irish dancer for years and won many trophies and medals, became an Irish, champion Irish dancer. It just made me happy. So no matter what I was doing, whether I had a full-time job here or a school there, I was always taking class and working on dance.
So how did Maternal Dance come about? That's what we want to get into today. So just tell us how it started.
So I was actually enrolled in the Master of Dance program at NYU, and I became pregnant with my first child, and I didn't think twice about continuing on the program. I just, I told everybody in the program I was pregnant, and it's kind of, oh, you're going to continue? I'm like, yes, I'm going to continue. So I worked through the program as I went through my pregnancy. And in my anatomy and kinesiology class, at 8 months pregnant, I was the guinea pig. Everybody was watching me move in space. It was kind of fun.
They hadn't seen that before.
No. And so, yeah, because really at that time, dancers weren't, talking about becoming pregnant. And if they did become pregnant, they kind of like had to put their career on hold or, just didn't start families right away. So that's how that was the seed for starting Maternal Dance, because I began to take note of what movements were helping me throughout my pregnancy, what movements were not serving me during my pregnancy. And I started to talk to my midwife about these, what I was noticing. And she was really confirming as I was telling her. She was like, yeah, she's like, that's right, that's true. And, so we were kind of, talking about this together as I was going along through my pregnancy. And that's how it started, basically.
So how did your experience then turn into Maternal Dance?
Yeah.
And the belly dance DVD?
Yeah. So fast forward like 3.5 years later, and I'm pregnant with my second child. And in between the two, I was, choreographing, and I was working in dance. But when I became pregnant with my second child, I was no longer at NYU. I had graduated. And the thing about being at NYU pregnant was that we were a small group and like a family. So as my belly was growing and I'm dancing, I felt very supported and safe in that environment, in that community. With my second pregnancy, I was like, okay, now, I looked around for a dance class. I literally, was looking around for, how can I continue dancing while pregnant? And I began taking prenatal yoga. And then I found a course called Maternal Fitness. And between the two, I was getting in my exercise and learning things about being pregnant and fitness that I had never known before. So I then, started to think, wow, there's no prenatal dance out there.
There wasn't at that time. Yeah.
No, and this might be something that I can do. And as I was, taking prenatal yoga, maternal fitness, I still would come home and literally put on like reggae, Bob Marley, and just allow myself to rock my hips and be, I was grounded, and that felt really good, rocking my hips. And then I started, moving and doing more things. And, with the experience of already dancing, I already felt comfortable, experimenting with movement and dance. And I said to my husband, I think there's something here. I think I'd like to develop a class for pregnant women. And he thought it was a great idea. And I began telling some other people, and they were like, what? Pregnant women dancing? You're crazy. But I never listened to other people, not like that. When I have my mind set on something, I just do it. And, so I actually approached the woman who ran Maternal Fitness. She's an RN. And I thought if I showed her what I developed, that she would hire me to come work at her studio, because her whole studio was all about pregnant women and pregnancy. So I let her know, and I gave her a private session, and she loved it. And she was like, "Ooh, wow, I love that. Wow, how did you, where'd you get that from?" And, but, because I have a dance background, so I was showing her things that she wasn't familiar with, and with pregnancy and exercise. And after the class was over, she said to me, well, I don't allow just anybody to work at the studio. She said, but I love this, so I'm going to allow you to work at the studio. She said, how much are you going to charge for classes? And I said, oh, I never thought about that. I never thought about that. She said, well, this is how much the studio costs to rent. And so you're going to have to work out, based on the rent of the studio, how much you're going to, so she was like basically letting me know, you need
to pay for this. Yeah.
Yes. And I walked out of that. I remember walking out on the street going, oh, I guess I'm in business for myself now.
That's how it happens.
And then actually I loved Maternal Fitness, the name. So I went back to her and I said, would you mind if I called it Maternal Dance? Is that going to be a problem for you? She said, no. So I copyrighted, Maternal Dance, and the rest is history, basically. That's how it started.
And what is it? Like, take us through it a little bit to tell us what the program is about or involves, and how it benefits.
So in the beginning, maternal dance was the benefits of exercise. Oh, shoot. I can't remember now. Wow. That's amazing. I've had a few taglines along the way. Oh, geez, I can't remember. That's so funny. But there were.
It's evolved, obviously.
It evolved,
yes.
really. So in the beginning, it was basically a place for pregnant women to come to exercise through dance and feel good. And for me, it was very important to have a place for pregnant women to come for self-expression. Because when we're pregnant, so much is going on. There's so much going on the inside. There's a baby we're growing on the inside. And that causes changes, And like I said back when I brought up my first brochure, changes mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And there's so much going on. Yeah. And yes. And, the body is preparing for labor. Like the body already knows what it's doing. But we're the ones who are like, oh my God, how can I do this? I'm going to, a lot of women freak out, have, anxiety about labor and birth. And I felt like this is a place for them, not just to get safe exercise, but also allow themselves to be expressed in a way that
and have fun.
And have fun. Yeah. And have fun and feel good. Yeah. So that was the initial motivation and intention for maternal dance, because that's what it was for me. After a while, I started to get my clients coming in saying, this is the only class that helps my lower back issue. Like, really? That makes sense. I would get like, when I come to class, I breathe easier. I had one woman who came in with a hip pain that just wouldn't go away. And she said to me, I don't know what it is. I've taken the yoga. I've done this. I've done that. I can't get it. I said, you know what? Let's work it out in class. I bet it moves through class. And sure enough, after the class, she's like, you know what? It feels so much better because it was fluid movement. It's flowing. It's not just a static stretch where you're stretching and holding. I think for pregnant women, there's a lot going, for all of us, our human bodies are in motion all the time. And there's always movement. So I think, when things get blocked, pain, emotional even, the dance helps it to move through a lot easier probably than, I just feel because you're relaxed as you're moving, So when these things were coming up, I thought, okay, I really want to check this out. And that's when I invited this physical therapist, Deborah Goodman, who at the time, she was a maternal fitness trainer. She got her certification through maternal fitness. And she also had done her training at the New York City Ballet. She worked with women. That was her clientele were all women. And so I asked her if she would come to a class. She came to a class, and I really thought, I really want to hear what she has to say. Like, what can I improve on? If there was anything that I wasn't doing that was safe, or questionable. So she came to class, and afterwards I said, okay, lay it on me. Just let me know if there's anything I should change or do better. Or she's like, no, this class is amazing. She's like, she goes, this really helps women prepare for labor. And then she changed that. She said, actually, it doesn't just help women prepare for labor. She said, it prepares them for labor because of the exercises, that the warm up in the class. And by the way, I have to say, for pregnant women, it's so important for them to do a thorough warm up. They need more of a warm up than just a regular dance class. So, and I think people really need to pay attention to that because injury can happen so quickly. But from the warm up through the whole dancing, she just loved it. And I felt like, okay, so now I can go to the next level. And the next level for me was in my marketing and telling people this is not just a class that's fun and you're going to feel good, but it prepares you for labor. And I started to, you know,
And you
connect
had that
with,
external confirmation, I
yeah,
think.
yeah,
You'd had your own personal experience, but then you did have
yes,
somebody critique you and they told
yes,
you, yes, it has all the components. So
yeah, yeah,
you had that validation as well.
yeah. And then soon after that, I was doing a workshop at one of the YWCAs here in New York City, the 14th Street Y actually. And at that time, it was a 6-week class, a 6-week program, which I loved because the exercises, the warm up, it's weird because, like, you know, as their bellies were growing, as they were getting bigger, because that's what happens, you know, the baby gets bigger, we get a little bigger. I would add more movement because they would get used to the movement, and then I would add more movement. So after 6 weeks, they were doing everything that I was doing in a dance class, you know, except for leaping and jumping and turning. You know, we didn't do things like that because that's not safe. It really isn't. So, but there was one woman who, and, you know, well, for this 6-week workshop at the Y, after 2 weeks, it was closed. So if you wanted to join the program in the 3rd week, it was closed. That was my rule, because I didn't want women to start in the 3rd week when the other women already had 2 weeks under their belt and they were already on their way. So, but the program director came to me on this 3rd week of one of these sessions, and she said, you know, I know that you have this, you know, rule that women can't come after the 3rd week or after the 2nd week. She said, but I have this woman here who is begging to join your program. So I went and I spoke to her and I asked her, you know, what's going on. And she said, look, she said, I'm having extreme back pain. And I've been doing acupuncture, acupressure. She's like, nothing is working. And somebody told me about your class. So she found me and she said, can I please take your class? She was due in exactly, actually she came on the third week. So she was due in 3 weeks. So I said, wow, and you're due in 3 weeks. Okay. So I said, okay, I will work with you. And, you know, it's a nice little group that we can, you know, I can monitor you and help you out. So, and I was eager to see how it was going to work for her too. And the next week she came back and she said, oh my God, my back feels, she said the night after the class, that's when my back felt the best. She said, and eventually by the time I get back to class for the next week, it's starting to hurt again. She's like, your class really did help me. And she continued through the class and had a great birth and felt the point for her was to feel good during her pregnancy. And it really alleviated her pain. And she said, your class was the only class that helped me. So
yeah, but those rhythmic movements, I think it does. It loosens everything up.
yes.
And I think, you know, because your ligaments do soften when you're pregnant from the hormones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, you know, you got to be careful about what you're doing, I'm sure. I mean, you know better than I do, but I know from being pregnant that things are just not the same.
Definitely. You know, and there was another time I was asked to do a program at Equinox, you know, the gym Equinox here in New York City. And I went the first day I was there, a pregnant woman, 7 months pregnant, walked in before the class was starting. People were starting to come in. And she came right up to me and she said, am I going to get a workout? And I looked at her and I said, this is the sort of class where we're going to build up to that. I said, but initially you're going to learn a lot of things today. We are going to do stretches and, you know, some dancing, but, you know, we build up to more, you know, strenuous, you know, low impact aerobic type dance towards the end. And she said, oh, because I want to work out. And she walked out of class. And I was kind of glad because I didn't, you know, I didn't want that pressure. Yeah. and I didn't want that pressure in the class, you know, to feel like I had to satisfy her, because I always want everybody to be
Had
happy.
to break a sweat.
To break a sweat. Well, and the truth is, when I looked at her, I can see she already had a weight problem. You know what I mean? Like she was a weight issue, I should say. And
Yeah.
I could tell. And so anyway, we went through the class, and when I walked out of the class, there was a whole studio of bicycles right outside the dance studio. And as I walked by, I see this woman on the bike furiously, you know, riding her bicycle. And I thought to myself, you know, good for her if that's what she wants to do.
Yeah.
But I felt like, you know, in this time, in this day and age, we are always rushing and doing things and doing. And pregnancy really is a time to modify, to take a step back, to give yourself a break. You know, one of the things on my DVD that I produced, I purposely wanted an imagery section, a place where women could see how guided imagery can actually help them to tune in, slow down, take a breath, and get in touch with their pregnant bodies and their babies. And in my classes, I would tell women, this is such an important tool to cultivate while you're pregnant for labor. You're a mom too, Leslie, and you know that when you're in labor, you know, I've heard women scream, you know, ah, you know, when they're having a contraction. And I say to the women, that's just wasting energy. Yes, you want to be able to moan and you want to be able to just let it out. But when you're screaming, you know, when you're really like, you're not really allowing yourself to work with the contractions in the way that's going to be productive for you. Because the screaming just wastes energy, and then you get tired, and how are you going to push? So the guided imagery and relaxation is such a nice way for pregnant women to do this for themselves daily. And then it actually helps them during the labor process, because we have that fight or flight mechanism. It's just in us instinctually. And when we start to feel contractions, you know, automatically it's like, you know, the flight mechanism starts to
Something's happening.
Just happens. But if you've practiced guided imagery or meditation, you know, being quiet, sitting still, and just tuning in, slowing down, it really does give you something to work with in labor. It's another tool to work with, to help with the contractions, with the labor process.
But I think in general, like pregnancy has become something that's so unnatural, or something that is sort of on the side, you know, I'm going to be pregnant. And we miss all that time, like you said, communing with the child and really feeling into your body. And I've seen the DVD and the kind of movements that you do. That must be so interesting for the baby as well, because they are these fluid movements, and they're inside all that water. It must be a really interesting experience for them. It would be interesting to talk to the mothers that are pregnant and ask them, you know, how are their babies responding in there? Because it must be a really interesting experience for them as well.
You know, in one of my press pieces, and I just went through it just to refresh my memory about my journey in maternal dance. In one of the press pieces, the New York One News, one of the women in the class, she was 8 months pregnant, and she does talk about that in the interview. The reporter asked her, and she said, she said, it's kind of funny because my hips are going one way and the belly's going another way.
They have a mind of their own.
And to me, the prenatal belly dance workout was, yes, it's like using, belly dance moves, but it really literally is the belly dancing. That was also like a pun on words for me too, which is my own little joke. But what's interesting about about this whole thing about, what the baby might feel inside, when I started doing belly dance baby showers, my very first one was at a home, and the women who came, I mean, I had the grandmother in her 90s, you know, and new moms. And so one of the women who had just had a baby laid the baby on the couch, and we were like kind of dancing around the couch. And it's really interesting because that baby you could just see it was so soothed just by laying there. It didn't make a peep. It was just really happy. And we were all like, wow, look at the baby. He's just really enjoying. And another baby was like in the mother's arms. And just as we were like doing some hip lifts, you know, hip kicks, whatever, the baby just felt so peaceful, just enjoying it. So you can imagine on the inside too, there's got to be, you know, with the movement and the comfort, you know, when you've got a baby crying, one of the ways of, you know, especially a colic baby, you know, taking the baby in the car seat and taking a drive actually helps.
Or dancing with them.
And dancing helps too. It really does, you know, with the baby in your arms.
Yes.
So, you know,
No,
and by the way, at that belly dance baby shower, this has happened quite a few times. There was the aunt or the grandmother that was in her 90s. She said, oh, I'm just going to sit this one out. And I said, oh, come on. You know, this is fine. You know, you'll be great. And she said, no, I want to watch. I said, okay. I said, but you're welcome to join in anytime. And within 2 seconds, she was like up there dancing with us, you know, because it just
contagious.
Looked so fun. And then she, it was really fun. Yeah. So, and actually that was my first belly dance baby shower. And I have a video of that. That's the only one I showed the video of, but anyway. So yeah, I think babies do feel. I think they feel it in the womb, and I think they definitely feel it and know it on the outside. You know, they hear the music.
And it's a dance they could do with you because it really is related to the belly. So, well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, tell us a little bit about the DVD and what you do and what it takes you through, and how women can benefit from that.
You know, my motivation for making the DVD was I realized, oh my gosh, you know, every 9 months women have their babies and then they leave. Then they're off to something else. And I did develop a new mom series, but I really always wanted to put the emphasis on the pregnant women. I wanted to give them something special. You know, as opposed to, you know, we all focus on the baby showers and, you know, the baby's coming and, you know, baby gifts. But, you know, up until Victorian times, by the way, it was the woman who was celebrated, not the baby. After a woman gave birth,
I always think on birthdays, we should celebrate the mother.
Yes. I always buy myself
I should get
a gift.
instead
I
of
buy myself a gift when it's one of my kids' birthdays, because it's like,
good for you.
Yep, I brought them into this world. I'm going to
exactly. I'm going to celebrate.
That's right. But so with the DVD, I said, you know, if I do a DVD, or, you know, at that time I was saying video, but the DVD came out, and I thought I can reach more people, more women. And I really wanted it to be something fun, safe, and effective. And at that time, my tagline was, have fun. Oh, geez, why am I forgetting my taglines? I guess there's so many of them.
You wrote new ones.
I know. It just kept growing. Oh, have fun, stay fit, feel fabulous. I came out with that back in the, you know, like 15 years ago. Have fun, stay fit, feel fabulous. That was my tagline at the time. And so, you know, when I was producing the DVD, as I was actually before producing it, as I was writing the script, I was watching other DVDs, and I was getting feedback from my clients and students coming to classes. And I got a lot of feedback telling me, this DVD is too hard for me. And, you know, and I would say, can I check it out? And I would look and go, oh my God, like this is craziness to put some things on here for women to do at home when they're not even, you know, they don't know what they're looking like, or posture. So, you know, posture is so important to pay attention to, and there's pregnancy posture. So there are postural changes during pregnancy. So I was trying to, keep all of this in mind at the same time being a fun kind of workout to do. So I modeled the DVD after my maternal dance class, meaning there's the warm up. Then there is like a kind of like a section for, toning arms, and, we do things in the studio with legs at the bar and things like that. But I wanted some toning, but to keep to infuse dance movements along the way. And then the Latin belly dance fusion chapter is a 20-minute low impact aerobic workout. And I remember, like, the makeup artist I used, she still works with me, Sammy. She did the makeup for the DVD. She was one of my clients. She took maternal dance with her first child. And I remember her sitting there watching with one of the female producers, and we were taking a break, and they both said, "Oh my God, this looks like so much fun. I want to do this. I want to do this." And, it is fun, and it's a workout. Like, I was sweating, like I sweat doing that workout. So, but I purposely broke things down into chapters because I wanted women to have the opportunity to build up if they weren't in the best of shape, or they were just starting out, working out, or with the dance program, prenatal dance, that they can do it and build up. Or, everybody is time deprived. So I also had in mind breaking down the chapters so that they can fit in some movement during their day. So the first chapter, Relax and Rejuvenate is what it's called, is 15 minutes. And that's all on the floor. We do belly breathing to strengthen abdominals through the breath, using the breath and the belly. There's a whole issue with, the diastasis recti, which is technical, but as the belly grows, the baby pushes against the abdominal wall and can cause a separation in the abdominal wall. And those abdominal muscles that separate are the same abdominal muscles we need to push the baby out. So it's actually really important to not just let it all hang out. It's really kind of important to make sure that those muscles are toned and that the separation doesn't go so big. And there are ways to test to see where you're at. I'll never forget one woman coming into class saying, "I love this class, but my doctor doesn't think I should continue with any kind of exercise." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because I have a separation this big, like this big." And we measure by fingertips, by fingers, 1 finger, 2 finger width, 3. Hers was like this. And I said to her, "Your doctor's not going to tell you this, but those are the same muscles you need to push the baby out." So it's,
Wow.
Unless there's another medical reason why you can't take class, I think you should, at least we should talk about this. And we did. We had a conversation, we continued the dialogue, but doctors are not going to tell you. They're not, I don't think doctors, OBGYNs are not, a lot of them, they're not looking at the physiological ways that the body actually helps the woman push the baby out. They're not thinking about the Kegel muscles, the pelvic floor muscles, or the abdominals. So as a dancer,
and unless they send you to some kind of perinatal class or something,
or physical therapy,
they're not focused on
right,
on strengthening you in any way.
Right. No. And it's really, I hate to say this, I had I do private sessions, privately. I go to clients' homes, and I recently had a client who said to me, she said, "Oh, we're going to have our birth out in Wyoming where we have a house." I said, "Great." And we talked about birth plan and all that. And she said to me, she said, "You can't even believe here in the city how they just automatically talk about, scheduling the birth, C-section." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, it's really that, it's getting that bad."
Yeah, it is.
It's just so, and I don't think pregnant women are, they listen to their doctors, a lot of them listen to their doctors. And my intention for maternal dance also was to give women everything I know about pregnancy, not just the exercise, not just the dance, but what I learned from my own mother. My own mother taught me about imagery. You know, what I learned by watching her.
You got a lot of practice.
Got a lot of practice.
9 children.
I
8
saw
below
a
you.
lot, and I was a sponge. You know, I was a kid growing up. I was a sponge. I soaked in a lot of, you know, I learned a lot just by osmosis, just by watching and being there.
Which, by the way, I think is one of the problems, because I think like when I grew up, I was in the States when I grew up. The first child I ever held was my own daughter. I had never held a baby before my own daughter. We didn't know anybody that had children. But here in Egypt, where you have extended families, people are around other children, all the age groups are together, and my daughter has so much more experience with children than I ever had when she was a teenager. So I think that it's difficult. Other people are not learning by osmosis because we're not around that. And that is such an important way to learn things, is for it to just be natural. You see women breastfeeding, you see people, you know, you see women getting bigger and how they feel or what they do or what they can't do, or, you know, what the baby looks like when they're born, the stages that they go through. You had 2 children. Always your second child is much easier in the sense that you know what to expect. Maybe they're not easier, but you know what to expect. And at least for me, I didn't have any experience. My daughter was the very first encounter that I had.
It was the experiment.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's unfortunate. And I think it does. And I think this program is amazing because it gives people an experience and makes it a positive experience and joyful experience, which I think it's become something so mysterious and possibly fearful even for some women if they just don't know what to expect.
No, definitely. First of all, I see programs popping up that, you know, I see photographs of women with weight, you know, they're pregnant with the weights, and that's fine, but you need to work properly. But I see certain things that I cringe, because after you give birth, some of the things that happen while pregnant to our bodies, unfortunately, stay with us for the rest of our lives. For instance, the pubic bone is 2 pieces of cartilage that fit together like this. And during pregnancy, that can become compromised. And a lot of times, like there's a certain stretch that we used to do that I actually did in my prenatal yoga class while I was pregnant with my second child. Nobody really knew this at the time, but we were doing the butterfly stretch where you put your 2 feet together and the knees are open, and, you know, and that felt good. And it's a great posture for bringing the blood supply to the pelvic area. So it's a really good, you know, pose otherwise. But a few years later down the road, when I was in my perinatal fitness certification program, I worked on that, but then I also did my prenatal yoga teacher training. The same teacher was teaching the teacher training, and she was great. I loved her. And she, in the teacher training years later, said, "We no longer do the butterfly stretch." And we're like, "Why not?" And she said, "Because that actually puts pressure. We learned it puts pressure on the pubic bone and can cause the pubic, what's called pubic synthesis, where it can separate even while you're pregnant. It can separate while you're giving birth." And I thought, oh my goodness, like there are so many things even in this field that we're learning as the field is maturing. And I remember when I gave birth with my son, natural childbirth, it was, and I used the imagery, which is a whole other topic as far as what my mother taught me. But 6 weeks after giving birth, I went back dancing. And it was not easy because, I mean, I was nursing and, you know, I'd have the nursing pads and the bra and just, you know, it was a little messy, but I was determined.
Dance floor.
I was determined. Yeah. But so we were rehearsing for a performance, a showcase, a showing. And there was a piece of choreography that when I went to do it the first time, I went, there was pain in my pubic area, the pubic bone. And I was like, what the heck is that? So I told the choreographer, I can't do this move. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. So she actually gave me a little bit of a modified move because we couldn't understand. But then I found out after that it was because I had a little bit of a separation from pushing my baby out. And if we do exercises and poses and things that can weaken that, that's not good. For instance, in my DVD, I was very aware for myself of knowing that people are going to be watching me. I need to be the role model. So I didn't want to turn out too much. And I didn't want to widen my legs too much to do a deep second position, you know, stretch, because I was trying to not to, you know, make sure that the woman at home, whatever her experience and whatever stage of labor is not well, yes, and you know, an overstretch, because when you overstretch, and pregnant women are more loosey-goosey, and they think, oh, I can do that, and then they go for it. Well, you're setting yourself up for injury afterwards. And for me, I went to physical therapy a few years ago because I was having some issues because of the program I was teaching. It really does work for pregnant women, but my body was no longer wanting to be pregnant, but it was still keeping things loose. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I needed to strengthen my pelvic area and the ligaments, you know, and everything is surrounding. And I got into dialogue with the physical therapist, and I said to her, you know, it gets very frustrating when I see even photographs and things of stretches that people tell pregnant women to do, and it's not safe. And she said to me, I know, I come across the same things. And I said, what do you say to people? And she said, you know what? I got to a point where it just became like almost like an argument, you know, with certain professionals and people. They feel one way, but she said, but I see what's happening. People come to me for the help, you know, to rehabilitate what they did when they were pregnant, you know? So I don't know. I can only do what I do and what I know. And
put something positive forward and explain why it's a good thing, and not argue with everybody else.
Exactly. So that's kind of, you know, I see things, and I don't really say too much unless there's an opportunity to say, you know, what I need to say. But there is a lot of strange, you know, things out there going on. And as far as, you know, scheduling births and C-sections, and that's like the number one way to go now in New York City is like, you know, let's do a C-section.
I was horrified when my daughter had her first child. And I had both my children in Egypt. Mm-hmm. No problem. You do what you want. And then my daughter had hers in the US, and it was just like complete intervention. And it seems now the midwives are like the doctors rather than supporting the mother there. I guess you need a doula if you want to.
Yes, now the doula too. And you know something, Leslie? In ancient times, the midwife's role, and even, you know, the Native Americans, like, you know, going back, way back, the midwife's role was always to keep a lookout while the woman was in labor. The midwife's role was making sure that nobody came around so the woman could labor in peace the way she needed to. And when it was time to push, then the midwife would go and help her squat so that, you know, the baby can come down and out, which is a great way to, you know, to deliver. But that was the midwife's role, basically just to keep a lookout and then, you know, help in the delivery right at that moment. So it's
to advocate.
To
so
advocate.
I guess we all need, yeah, we need advocates at this point in time.
But like you said, the midwife's role has totally changed. Now they're doctors, basically.
Yes.
They're acting like doctors. And not to say there are many good midwives out there. I had a great midwife. I loved my experience with my
yes,
midwife.
but we have to maintain that feminine role that the midwife played of holding space for the woman who's giving birth.
But now that's the doula.
Yes, exactly. But unfortunately, that seems to be a role that has just gone out of consciousness generally. Mm-hmm. So yes. I guess it's not surprising that it's shifting in a way of being the person in control rather than just there to support the mother.
Yes. Now, my mother-in-law, who lives in Australia, she had 9 kids.
That's strange.
I know. One thing my husband and I had in common.
Exactly.
We both from 9. And in Australia, and well, she was from England, so she had her first 3 kids in England, then they went to Australia. She had all natural childbirths because it wasn't something that there was an issue with. It was like, this is the way it is. And when there's that acceptance, there's no freak out. Like, you know, her daughters were not freaked out by the birthing process.
No,
you know,
it should be a natural thing.
But here it's like, in the US, it's like, you know, it's become a business, you know, it's become a business. And the doctors too, I don't think they're serving the pregnant women, you know, to schedule C-sections. Of course, there are C-sections that need to be scheduled, but anyway, for convenience sake,
DVD. That's it.
Sorry, what?
They can do your DVD. They can take matters into their own hands. I think you have to take matters into your own hands. This is the way I want to have my child. I want to have it naturally and have the courage to do that. And thank God there's things like your DVD out there that for those women who want to do that, they have a way.
You know, there was one client I had, she would come to class. She traveled a lot in her work. So when she was in town, she would come to class like twice a week. And then she had my DVD. And she said she took it with her. She traveled with it to do the workout. And she said she probably averaged about 3 times a week working, you know, doing my program. In her labor and delivery, she told me this story after, because I called to check up on her, see how her labor went after her birth, the birth of her baby. And she said, Suzanne, you're not going to believe it. She said, it's because of you and what you taught me that I had a natural childbirth. And I said, oh, tell me more. I want to hear. So she said, you know, I was diligent in doing your program and your DVD. She said, and I was in labor for about 17 hours. And I was exhausted. I couldn't push anymore. I was tired. And that's when, at that point, the doctor came to me and said, okay, you know what? We're going to have to think about, you know, a C-section here because the baby's not, you're not able to push the baby out. The baby's not progressing, you know, whatever. And she said at that moment, she remembered everything I taught her about breathing, you know, abdominals, you know, everything. And because she was strong enough by that point, her abdominals, everything, she was fit, you know, to give birth, you know, she had everything she needed. And she said, doctor, please, can you please just give me another hour or 2, please? And he said, okay, you know, as long as the baby's safe, we can give you that. She pushed the baby out within the next 2 hours. She said, Suzanne, I had the birth of my dreams because at that point, everything you taught me kicked in. And I used it and I pushed my baby out. Now, you see, she would have had a C-section had she not had all that under her belt, which is empowerment. Empowerment is knowing, having the tools and
prepared,
being prepared and feeling, having the confidence to move forward with what you know. And she was able to have a natural childbirth. And she said, I had the birth of my dreams due to you.
Excellent.
Like, wow, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
So maybe you can give the ladies some tips some tips to prepare for labor?
So, I mean, I can give 3 unconventional tips, I would say, to
That
prepare
sounds
for
good.
labor. You know, having to do with fitness and you know, yeah. Actually, I just want to say this. I used to say to women, and I still do, it's not about getting in shape. It's about getting in shape for labor. Because you don't want to be, you know, losing weight and toning up and all that while you're pregnant. That's not what exercise, you know, prenatal exercise is about. You know, yes, it is important to have your muscles toned the best you can, because that gives you strength and power for the ultimate.
But it needs to be appropriate for your situation, which
Exactly.
in this case, you're pregnant. So
Exactly. So, so 3 unconventional tips. The first I would say is, and this is the most important prenatal exercise. It's an exercise for all of us, no matter what stage of life, but it is the most prenatal exercise to do, even if you're in bed rest, is to work your pelvic floor muscles, which are called Kegel exercises. Do your Kegel exercises. Very important. On the DVD, in my meditation chapter, in my guided imagery and meditation chapter, I do just a couple of them to get you going. But you should be doing up to about, I would say about 50 a day. Because the pelvic floor muscle, where the baby passes through the birth canal, that muscle needs to be toned as well. All of our muscles need to be toned, you know, to a certain extent, to really help with an easier and faster delivery. Vaginally, then, you know, your pelvic floor muscles are weakened, and you want to get them back so you know, you don't have to deal with incontinence and you know, wearing a diaper when you're a senior citizen. And also, you know, honestly, this is a very good point, but it helps with your sex life. And men should be doing Kegel exercises too, by the way. So I know they have a pelvic floor muscle too. So that's one tip, to be doing your Kegel exercises regularly. The second one is doing the imagery, doing some form of meditation or guided imagery. Now, the guided imagery, well, first of all, I do want to say my mother is the one who opened that door for me. A few months before I was delivering, I was pregnant, and I said to my mother, "Mom, how did you do it? 9 kids, how did you do this?" And she said, one thing that helped me, especially for her last pregnancy, because the last pregnancy, my younger sisters, I'm 15 years older than her. She was kind of an accident. She was, my mother actually was on birth control and got pregnant with her. Anyway, that's another story. But she said to me, I used imagery while I was laboring and meditate. She said, I use meditation. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, she explained to me how she used meditation and imagery. And she said, look, she gave me a guide. She gave me an image to use. She said, okay, when the contraction's starting, imagine yourself like surfing on a wave. And as the contraction is getting stronger and stronger, imagine yourself just riding on top of that wave, and you're riding, and then when the traction subsides, you go down and can take a breath and ride that wave. And she used that imagery, and that stuck with me. So yes, I used imagery in my own labor, both of them, in both my pregnancies and labors. But because that was so effective for me, and my mother taught me that, I then sought out a guided imagery course that was being offered for doulas. And I thought, oh, well, I'm not a doula, but I want to go take this course. I took the course. I was the only fitness, person in the class. Everybody else was a doula. But it was so helpful. Because we learned a bunch of imageries to use for pregnant women, as well as for afterbirth, for new moms, and for people in general. So it was a really beautiful course to take for me, and to have that under my belt that I can, pass on to my pregnant women. And the third, so that's the second one. And that helps actually for afterbirth too, as a new mom, because we all know, oh my gosh, when things happen, things could be happening very quickly. And if you've already been doing some guided imagery or meditation while you're pregnant, chances are you're going to be in touch with that side to help you kind of remain in a calmer state or handle things, not so harried, hopefully.
Yes.
As
keep you relaxed.
Keep you grounded. Yeah. So that's number 2. And number 3 is learning about the belly breathing, the abdominals. Not number 1, breathing itself for labor and delivery, but also you're doing the belly breathing using the abdominals. So it would be, and even while you're not pregnant, this is such a great way just to tone your abdominal muscles. So it's just simply, inhaling and filling up your belly, taking a big breath and allowing the belly to fill up, belly, rib cage, lungs. And then as you exhale, you want to pull that belly button into your spine. And if you've got a baby growing, I tell the women, pull your belly button into your baby, hug your baby from the inside. So, but after a while, you don't have to break it down like that. After a while, you can just simply pull that belly button in towards your baby, towards your spine, and allow yourself to strengthen your abdominal muscles in that way. And just simply by doing that, it automatically lifts your rib cage, which improves posture. So that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. Good for everyone. Yes.
So those are the 3 I would recommend to Kegels. Do your Kegel exercises, guided imagery, meditation, and the breath work, belly breathing and breath work in general.
Excellent. And we can all do those.
Yes.
We don't need to be pregnant. Yes. We can all do those.
Yes.
So let's say you have a free gift for our listeners. So maybe
yes.
you can mention briefly what that is.
So I put together this PDF with 5 exercises that pregnant women can do now to help them prepare for labor, to get them through labor. I'm not going to go through the 5 because I'd like you to get the free gift, but yes. I do. There's a photograph that, you got a couple of photographs to see the movement, and then you've got the write-up, and then I put a benefit. There are benefits, I actually state the benefits to each of these exercises, and why it's a good idea to do them during pregnancy. And I didn't put a playlist, but you can, whatever music, if you want music, whatever music makes you happy, one of the exercises is doing some lunges. Lunges, by the way, is a great exercise to do if the baby hasn't fully turned yet, doing lunges, it kind of can rock the baby in a certain way to get into place for labor and delivery.
Okay, so I hope everyone will take advantage of that and download that PDF and get those exercises. And you're about to launch a school next month. So
well, it's a maternal dance online course. Yes.
Excellent.
Been wanting to do this for years. I don't know. I just didn't do it. And now, with a little bit of a nudge from you, actually, Leslie. I said,
big nudge.
and the thing too is that it was so simple for me because I already had the outline. I've already prepared.
You've done it. Yes.
I've done I prepared some of this already, not just with all the work I've done, but I actually wrote an outline for my modules for my online course a couple of years ago. So I just had to go back and look at things and then develop it from there.
It wasn't the right time. This is the right time.
Yes. Yes.
So, excellent. So we'll keep everybody posted about that, or you can check out Suzanne's website or get on her mailing list and she'll keep you posted. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to wrap it up because as you can see, the the sun has gone down here in Egypt.
Oh, wow. Yes, it is noticeably darker
And I
now.
didn't think to put a light on before I started, so I'm sitting here in the dark, but never mind. That's fine. We're listening to you.
Yeah.
So thank you, Suzanne.
Oh, thank you for
all that wonderful information. And I hope that people will download the PDF and also follow up with your school and your DVD.
And do your Kegel exercises.
Yes, everyone.
Everyone.
All right, excellent. Okay.
Thank you so much, Leslie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.